Aphoristic Appendage to On Truthtelling. 1101–1150. 1101. The political correctness that the media rides on, but not only the media, as the morality, will one day pass. How it does, however, is anyone's guess, for the range of possibilities extends from a simple change of fashion to an earth-shaking event. 1102. Party politics is perpetual war but carried out like professional wrestling. 1103. No matter how much in the world is the result of chance, it will never equal the incalculable luck that brought about the astronomical long shot of a life-sustaining planet. 1104. Make all politicians honest, wise, and competent, and you'd have a better world but without their entertainment value. 1105. Perhaps one of the most secret affairs of the heart is not being as deeply affected by other people's suffering as we think we should be. 1106. Flying one's political colors in public usually entails buying into a number of issues. Picking and choosing among them isn't an option unless party politics isn't the game and winning the goal. 1107. Just as one can succeed in some great project if lucky, no insurmountable obstacle, so one can fail in it favorably, something learned, or forgivably, respectable attempt. Anything else in this area must be classed as catastrophic or demonic. 1108. Party politics has as its most consistent policy the one of painting the opposition in the most unfavorable light this side, and perhaps the other side, of the law court. 1109. Some people are so caught up in their suffering they've got nothing left to do but share it. 1110. With sufficient power and resources to influence it, public opinion can be taken in almost any direction. 1111. Besides appealing to emotion, propaganda is a call to reason based on claims presumably strong enough to convince all but fools or miscreants that the situation is so urgent as to demand taking action without delay and without question. 1112. Said one who wanted to look on the sunny side of death, "Summer's over, but there'll be millions more. My God, what or where will I be to see and relish them all?" 1113. There is a lot of wisdom to be found in great literary works, which distinguishes them from merely good or enjoyable ones. 1114. Just as it seems we desire to be as gods and know all, so it seems heavy curtains have been put both in front of and behind us to prevent this. 1115. The living don't worry about the dead except for those they know or imagine. All the rest are like so many black cows on a dark night. 1116. If one truly wanted to get rid of all that's bad in life, one would have to come up with some means, so extraordinary as to be almost unimaginable, of keeping up interest in all the rest. 1117. Most people who think they have the final word on some matter are simply repeating what they've heard elsewhere and, taking it to be authoritative, gives them the confidence to voice it in public. They then feel justified not only in thinking about the matter without criticism or circumspection but also in growing angry should anyone not accept their argumentum ad auctoritatem. 1118. There was a time, not so long ago, when people smoked almost everywhere but hardly ever swore in public or in polite company. Now almost the opposite is true and, generally speaking, we think we're the better for it. But how can we be sure of this since it took hundreds of years to determine the worst effects of smoking? Couldn't the same or something similar be true of a vice that, however rehabilitated, is likely prone to recidivism? 1119. What counts in political conflict above all else is an unequivocal for and against. Thus it is that even the most honest and straightforward of partisans are forced, at least at certain moments, to forget nuances, subtleties, making distinctions, looking at the whole picture, and perhaps what constituted the best part of their earlier thought. 1120. Politics can only work with a mixture of honesty and dishonesty because, with so many participants, partners, and levels of agreement and disagreement, one or the other on its own would be like pouring sand in the gears of a giant machine. 1121. What are the prospects of those who, at an advanced age, come down with a serious illness? Is it not either receiving treatment and then going on as a shadow of their former selves or not receiving it and soon making their exit? A situation seems to be arising both society and medicine will have to deal with as a developing ethical area mapped out not only by concepts of dignity in dying and death but also ones of social expedience and necessity. 1122. Between life and death is a timeline that seemed so long in earliest years but grows ever shorter as we get older. 1123. If reason is the basis of truth, then reason's not being able to ground itself, that is, not being able to assert or establish itself on the basis of reason alone, is its implicit nod to its inherently incomplete or contradictory nature. 1124. How many lucky ones have avoided selling their soul for stardom or something akin to it simply by not being successful enough to gain access into this temple of extraordinarily open and direct and, at the same time, terribly oblique and hidden temptations. 1125. At a recent conference on social justice and moral responsibility, one Western politician was asked a question about poverty. This topic not being on the agenda, he responded curtly, "What must be given top priority nowadays are minority rights and, what is no less important, saving the planet. As for the redistribution of wealth, that will certainly be attended to along the way." 1126. Life is what is lent to us and death the loss of the particular moment or miracle of our making. 1127. How can there be an end to cruelty in the world when it's tied up with what so many people believe is justice? 1128. Cruelty is the animal that wants food, the elements that exceed their limits, the justice that often tips over into injustice. Now, in the face of these horrific conditions, is it any wonder that all has been recast and simplified as good versus evil? And should this moral dualism, this metaphysics, this human construct be now regarded as a major accomplishment, a major error, or a major falsehood? Or should it be regarded as all three? 1129. A person in the prime of youth and one in decrepit old age are such vastly different creatures that it's hard to think of one coming from the other or one becoming the other. 1130. When it comes to morality, the popular mind is the mightiest display of mediocrity there is. 1131. Moral superiority is the last refuge of those both sufficiently vain and dissatisfied with themselves to look for ways to blacken others. 1132. If you've ever thought it would be a wonderful thing to know all the little secrets of some great person past or present, consider that some of these secrets must refer to what everyone keeps silent about as a matter of dignity. 1133. The only cure for consumerism is a crash. 1134. The only cure for consumerism is a successful form of communism. But this might strike many as oxymoronic. 1135. An aphorism at its highest moment, which is never a cliché but could end up one, is a singular thought expressed in a unique way. 1136. Political correctness is the modern-day liturgy by means of which even the scoundrel and hypocrite look pious and devout. 1137. Everybody lives in the bubble of the now and, for this reason, we're often afraid of what we shouldn't be afraid of and vice versa. 1138. While it's true the victor writes the history, letting the victim write it won't make it objective but only different. 1139. What seems durable is only what outlasts whatever else is there but on its way out. 1140. Collective fear leads to collective stupidity. It would be a mistake to think the authorities and powers that be won't play along with this or be complicit in it, even to the detriment of society, when they don't find it in their best interest not to. The proof of this? Well, think of how many institutions in Germany fell in line with the Nazis. Even the universities and churches toed the line. Wasn't this a result of widespread fear in conjunction with a policy, equally widespread, of looking after particular interests? 1141. When it comes to the possibility of being blamed for an innocent person's death, everybody, governments, health authorities, business owners, commentators, private individuals, would prefer to err on the side of caution and even overcaution. Despite this going the extra mile, there will always be some who, wanting to make sure no suspicion is cast on where their priorities lie, will claim we haven't been cautious enough. 1142. It is the situation of the media nowadays that its success is based on being able to talk about issues and events 24/7. With this economic and sometimes political pressure of having to talk even when there might not be much worth saying, it's small wonder that repetition, exaggeration, sensationalism, and alarmism have become ever more prominent features of this industry. The effects on society, both short and long term, are not fully known but are already showing signs of being, dare one say it, something to be alarmed about. 1143. Even those of the highest integrity, once they have adopted and maintained a political position, can never be truth-tellers of the highest order. Their priority is polemics, the winning on the battlefield, the commitment to a line of action and, as such, although they're quite willing to point the finger at their enemies, often quite rightly, of course, they rarely, if ever, do so at themselves. 1144. Perhaps the greatest flaw of those of us who are strong is that we seldom think of ourselves as being one day weak and so, all of a sudden, propelled into a group that, in however slight a way, we secretly held in contempt. 1145. During the early years of the Great Depression, Franklin D. Roosevelt famously said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." For the health of a society, this prescription is probably worth more than most others. 1146. Talk about killing the goose that lay the golden egg. If ever the media succeeds in tanking the economy by fear-mongering, it will have unleashed a Frankenstein upon the world, not only making others tremble but also the ones who created it. 1147. Given all the horrors that governments of every kind have unleashed for various reasons throughout history in countries such as Japan, Vietnam, Cambodia, Rwanda, Germany, and so on, what could be wiser than not to be a bit cautious when listening to what they tell you in times of emergency? 1148. The present-day governments of the world, like no doubt all governments throughout history faced with major disruptions due to famine, disease, war, revolution, economic collapse, etc., want to show they are completely in control of the situation. But given the alacrity with which they try to carry this out, widespread bungling and deception are no less characteristic of their actions than the contrary. 1149. From what I understand, and from what I now see around me, the capitalistic system, in a state of crisis, moves towards socialism. At least in the sense that, in a desperate attempt to save itself, governments grant huge bailouts, no doubt with stringent conditions attached, to private enterprise. What do you think? Well, if what you're saying is true, then the socialism in question is perverse. After all, these bailouts are meant to prop up the system, aren't they? No question of that. But as some have pointed out, it can still be a government move to control the economy. It's just that it's more for the rich than the poor. Well, be that as it may, it's certainly not government control of the means of production. The question is, could it ever become that? What do you think? I mean, could there ever be a creeping form of socialist takeover, working its way through capitalism, or does it require a revolution? Predicting the future is always a risky business. But if we're to go by the past, it seems to require a revolution. After all, capitalists aren't going to fold their tents at the first shot. Yes, there certainly have been successful revolutions in the past, bloody ones too, but what about the systems they installed? Could the same be said of them? They're the report cards a bit spotty. Of course, everyone knows of the Russian experiment. And failure. And then there's the Chinese one. Where, it seems, creeping capitalism saved the day. Wow. A strange picture, indeed. A creeping socialism to save capitalism and a creeping capitalism to save socialism. A full circle, it seems. Yes. Let's hope not a vicious one. 1150. The strange is as much at the heart of us as at the furthest stretches of the universe.